Hi everybody, I'm Bret Shuford, the Broadway Life Coach. Welcome to another episode of Broadway Life, where we teach you how to get a Broadway life. I'm here with my friend Rory Malley, who just finished his Broadway run as King George in Hamilton. And Rory, tell them what you're about to do.
I just came from our final run-through rehearsal for the first national tour of Hamilton. We're going to San Francisco in a couple of days to start tech and open a whole new company of Hamilton, and I'll be King George III out on the West Coast.
Why do you think you booked the job? What is it about the character that you think you're able to represent?
Wow, that's a hard question for me to answer, not just with this character, but with any character, because I'm always like, I don't know how I got this. I'm so worried someone's going to find out that I shouldn't be doing this. But I think that, there is a comedy aspect that I have been able to do on Broadway before in The Book of Mormon. I played Elder McKinley who sang Turn It Off, but it is a completely different role. Totally different. And in that, Elder McKinley was completely full of joy and happy all the time, and this is a king who is petulant and is angry and has total self-confidence and a huge ego. So it's different, but I think that basically they knew that I could pull off a comedic song when there wasn't a lot of material, or just in one song have a whole character, which was pretty much what it was in Book of Mormon.
So it's your comedic timing, and of course your voice, because his voice is crazy good.
Aww.
What do you think it is about Hamilton, the show, that made it such a hit?
I think that Hamilton is a hit because when I went to see it at the Public, I saw it and I thought, my God, Lin wrote a musical just for me. Like, I love politics and I love musical theater and history, and I was convinced that this was just for me. And then I realized that there were a lot of people who love hip-hop who thought, oh, this was written just for me. Or people who've been seeing theater forever and love history and read lots of nonfiction historical books, and they thought, my God, the first musical that's just for me. Everyone had this different entry point into it. But I think another piece of it is the kind of person that Lin is, because Hamilton could have been a really solid hit in the New York community and not something that really penetrated into the pop culture of
Global community.
Yeah. If Lin wasn't someone who knew how to speak to the masses through social media, how he was able to say, this show isn't just our show, it's the country show, it's the world show, it's the Broadway community show. And I'm so proud to be a part of a medium that could create something like this. And I think that they've done a really good job of giving everyone ownership of Hamilton, because it's not just about the musical, it's also like our story of how we came together as a nation.
Or if you could give the story one theme, what do you think the one thing that really tugs at people that they can walk away from the show and go, that's what I want to do, or that's what I want my life to look like, aside from just being theater, but what from the story?
Well, I feel like at the end, who tells your story? I think that paired with Nonstop, where he's writing like he's running out of time, I think those two things paired together has been like, life is short. You need to work as hard as possible and throw everything you can into your passion. Who's going to tell your story? You have to make something of this time that you have and inspire others. And that's how we live forever. It's by creating, by making. We all have a limited amount of time physically on Earth, but we all can contribute to a creative world that can last way past when we're on this Earth.
I think that fearlessness is also why Hamilton is the hit that it is, because Lin-Manuel sort of embodies that level of fearlessness.
Right.
Don't you think?
I do, but he has said that he sees both sides of Burr and Hamilton in himself, and I'm like, if you aren't Hamilton, I don't know who is. But I think for him, he made the point that they waited to go to Broadway when they had the opportunity to go earlier because they wanted to keep working. And it's pretty clear that someone like Lin has been from the get-go. He wrote In the Heights in college. there's certain people who don't ever feel like they need to be given permission to create or to do something. And I'm so envious of them, and I try to pretend like I'm one of those people, because I'm always waiting for an authority figure, whether it's a teacher or a director or someone to come along and say, yes,
Do this.
you should do this. Yes, you should create that. Yes, I want someone to tell me to do it. But that's not what a lot of the people who do the most creating do, because if you wait around for somebody to tell you to do it, you're just going to keep on waiting.
Yeah, well, it's also, I think it's a sense of safety, and I think we all want to be given permission. I think it's an interesting thing I find, with actors, especially because we're so used to just, okay, I'll do what's on the page. Sometimes it's like going that extra mile. It's like, oh, I can do that? Oh, I didn't know I could do that.
Right.
But you are doing that now with your podcast.
Sure.
If you guys don't know, Rory has this awesome podcast, which I'm on one episode.
That's right.
Called Living the Dream. What would you say is the one common thread that you're noticing through all of your conversations on there?
I feel like a lot of them will say to younger people, like, chill, don't get so obsessive about what your passion is, because it's important to be a person too, and to live life. And I feel like that's kind of the pocket of what I want the podcast to be. So I'm glad that I'm hearing that back over and over again. But also that we're all afraid, that everyone is afraid, and that I've had Tony winners and I've had Tony losers, and I've had all kinds of people at different parts of their career talking to me, and we're all afraid. And it's nice to kind of like admit that to each other and talk about the difficulties and the real joys of the business.
All right, so I find that every show I do shifts my perception of the world in some way. Just whatever I've learned through the subject matter, or even just the people I work with. How would you say Hamilton has shifted your perception, if any?
That's a big one, because it's definitely shifted my perception of the power of art. I'm amazed at all the children who have memorized every single lyric, and that it's reminded me that audiences are craving quality. They need to be guided into great things. I think a lot of times people play it safe because they'll want something that they've seen before, and we have to be safe, something that's worked before, we should try to recreate it. Well,
it's the same fear.
It's the same fear. And you know what? Especially when you're talking Broadway musicals, when only a third of Broadway musicals make their money back, let alone make any money, you get why producers are afraid to invest tens of millions of dollars into something that doesn't have a proven track record of working.
Right.
But I think that this show has really proved to me that it's not really worth it unless you swing for the fences.
I just think it's interesting that this show comes out, the irony of it, and then this election happens, and here we are, people are really starting to rise up. People are really starting to speak out and tell their stories.
Yeah. I was very proud that the Women's March, I was at the Women's March in LA, and there were so many people with Rise Up signs from Hamilton and with the Hamilton star. That's pretty cool that, a musical has become an anthem to a lot of people at a time like this. And, I think that it is ironic that it's at the same time that of the political climate that we're in, but I also think that no matter what climate we are in, it would be relevant. History repeats itself so much, and in good ways and bad. And it was just shocking to go through the election last year and have all of these songs about elections, the election of 1800, and bitter primary battles, and it's crazy. I mean, luckily we don't have any duels, but give us a few more months, I guess. But it was oddly comforting to me to know that the fight for creating this country and making the Constitution, that it was messy, that it wasn't it didn't all just come on a silver platter after they won the war. It was divisive and controversial, and people didn't know, when Burr says, how do you know if you're backing the right horse? When he says, defend the Constitution with me, Hamilton asks him to do the Federalist Papers. And it just seems so crazy now how the sausage gets made in the room where it happens. It's not pretty. Those are all lyrics from the show. But that's what I'm saying. It's the truth. And this is not pretty, what we're going through right now. But it's democracy. And, it's a fight to keep democracy, for sure.
What do you think that lesson that he learns is in the show?
Ha! Boy, does the king learn any lessons? I don't know what lesson he learns, or maybe to just laugh at it all. I think that, part of it is humility, because he doesn't have any, and then when, he's just like, you'll be back, and then they leave, and really learning to laugh at your haters, instead of staying mad. I think if there's anything of a lesson that he learned. But, I can say that for me, what I've learned at playing this character is just to have more of a presence of self-confidence, because there is nothing like entering a stage and playing a king to make you feel so small. Like, I was like, oh my, how am I ever going to pull this off? Walking out onto a stage by myself as the king,
It's one of the only times in the show where there's like only one person doing something.
Right. I
that
walk
true?
out on stage and everyone runs off, and then I go off stage and everyone runs on,
It's so
and then I'm
true.
by myself backstage. But it's definitely like the most solitude I've had on stage, and having to own the stage and the costume and not let it eat me up.
How did you do that?
Well, it took practice, I remember my first note from our director, Tom McHale. I said, when you first come out, don't look as so scared of your people. And I was like, oh yeah, that was a choice. Yeah, it's definitely a choice. I was like, I was scared out of my mind, like the first entrance I made, I had to put in an hour before, and it was the first time I wore the crown and the cape. And Andrew Reynolds, who's my buddy, who played it for about a month, he called me and he was like, are you scared? I was like, yes, Andrew, I'm very scared. And he was like, so was I. So it's gonna be fine, don't worry about it. And I was scared, and like that's normal. Like, you're going to be scared walking out onto Hamilton stage the first time. But I was glad that I was able to force myself to be as present as possible and just witness it, instead of just being, like in a daze, which I think takes experience and time. But, it's after 300 some performances as the king, walking out on stage and owning it, I feel I haven't gotten better at that as the king. I've also gotten better at that as Rory, because it's not like in this huge way, but I just kind of, I don't know. I'm a little less afraid to enter into a room. I really do think that.
I love that.
Yeah.
If you could tell someone how to live their best Broadway life, what would you say to them?
I would say be good to yourself and be true to yourself and create your own work. Those are the 3 keys, I think, to not just a long career, but a happy career, because you're not always going to be working, you're not always going to be feeling like something is being given to you to make you feel like you have a Broadway life. You have to create that Broadway life. So don't beat yourself up about what you look like or who you think you should be. Don't pretend that you're someone that you're not, and create your own work.
Thanks, Rory.
Make
sure you guys check him out in San Francisco. When do you start performances?
March 10th.
March 10th. For how long?
For 5 months.
5 months, San Francisco, then in LA.
Then Los Angeles.
And also make sure you check out his podcast, Living the Dream.
Living the Dream.
You can get it on iTunes and also somewhere else.
Google Play.
Google Play.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Make sure you live your best Broadway life. Thanks.
Do it.